I'd always been good at helping people, right? That's my heart, is to help people. And I've always been good at that. I began to learn immediately once I became part of Maxwell Leadership. While I was good at helping people, I really stunk at growing myself.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Keep the Change. And I'm so excited for this new year because there's so many different men and women that we will be having on the show that just add super value to everyone in this room. And today, the gentleman that's going to join us is a young man by the name of Dr. Gary White. I met Gary through Maxwell Leadership. I joined in 2013. I'm pretty sure Gary joined before me, and he has been such an inspiration to me, watching him from in the audience and having discussions together. And always, I've gotten just huge nuggets. As a matter of fact, he and I were on the phone last night, and we were talking about a specific person in automotive. And I thought, man, I think that you and I if I'm on this podcast, I can bring value. You and I on this podcast can bring 10X. So I'm just really excited that he's joining me and that we get to bring this really quality content to you today. Dr. Gary White, welcome to the show.
This is so cool. And this is a long way from years ago, us meeting in the hallway at a conference, right? This is a long way. And man, you're looking great. You're doing great things. And hey, it's just my privilege to get to be on here with you on Keep the Change.
Yeah, amen. And you know, this is really about, when we looked at what we wanted this to be this year, we realized there's so many men and women that want to transform their lives. When Keep the Change was written into a book, it was a story of my recovery, but it was a story of being broken into that place of peace that I am today with 32 people, 38 people in my family, whatever it can be. And so as I have guests come on, I always want to talk about how can we as coaches help others transform their lives. So Gary, tell us your story. Tell us where you've been. Tell us where you are now, a little bit about your business, if you would, and kind of give us the when, how was it, and how it is today.
Wow, I'll try to condense it because my story can get a little long. At times it has, but I think I can condense it real well. And so I came out of my dad, was an 8th grade education, and he installed floors, right? So as long as I could remember, I was going with dad and helping him lay carpet. And the truth is, when I was real little, they didn't have air conditioning back then, right? So my dad, they didn't have central heat and air. And my dad's working on the carpet. Well, he'd have a fan there to keep him cool. Well, I'd lay down in front of the fan and go to sleep. Just a little boy, and I think it was probably a blessing to him for me to sleep rather than whine, because I was pretty good at that. But at any rate, I came up through that. I became a paramedic, working, always helping people, took on my dad's trade. So, because obviously if you're going to work as a paramedic, you got to do something else to make a living. Because it just doesn't work, or it sure didn't for me. And so, from that, I knew that even that would be transitional. Even though it turned into a great business, I was able to grow the flooring business to a good business where I was supporting 5-6 families. But I even knew then that it was going to be transitional, just something on the inside. And I had a mentor that was mentoring me and really introduced me to this John Maxwell guy. And so I'd been following John for about 11 years before I joined John's team to become a coach. Now, the interesting thing is I'd always been good at helping people, right? That's my heart, is to help people. And I've always been good at that. I began to learn immediately once I became part of Maxwell Leadership. While I was good at helping people, I really stunk at growing myself. I had a problem, Bart, and that problem was I was a bit self-sacrificing. I really was. I would have the imposter syndrome and all those things, and I just thought other people should get the opportunity before me. And how that manifested a lot of times was when I would go back to the Maxwell conferences and have these special sessions with John, I'd put myself on the back row in that room because other people should have the better seats. And while I had questions and I would hold my hand up for Q&A, the person with the microphone that's going to take it to the person that's got questions, they're in the front of the room. They're not going to come up past all those hands to come back to me.
Mm.
And so I would just put my hand down, and I would go year after year, and I'd never get my questions answered. And then in one of those sessions, John told a story, and he told a story of his granddaughter getting her driver's license, and they went on their first drive together. And he said, so they went to the outlet mall, and she was going to choose this parking space that was about a quarter mile from the entrance. And he said, honey, what are you doing? And she said, well, I just figure all the parking spaces at the front are already taken. He said, how do you know? You haven't been to the front. He said, drive to the front. And as she began to drive, he said, now, sweetheart, I'm going to teach you something. He said, life and opportunity are like parking spaces. And if you keep choosing the ones out here, you'll never make it to the front.
Ooh.
When John said that, and I've got chills right now even as I'm talking about it, when John said that, I realized that while I had this boat that I was trying to get out of the harbor, that there was this anchor that had been holding me back. And that anchor came up out of the water, and man, it had barnacles all over it. And that anchor said self-sacrificing.
Mm.
And I recognized that, hey, you got to be hungry. Yes. And you need to be humble. Yes. And you need to believe. Yes. Man, I realized you got to be first.
Mm.
And if you don't add value to yourself, then you're limiting the value that you can add to others. So, hey, listen, Bart, after that, I got myself on the front. I can remember Mark McCullough, he had the microphone, and I got there early. I'm right on the front, and I'm, Mark, now when you got questions, you come to me because I got it. And as soon as I could tell that Q&A is getting ready to start, I'm doing like this to Mark. He's coming over me, and I started getting my questions answered. I started investing in myself and putting myself in the room with great people and making sure that I had great questions. Because here's why, because I knew there was more, and it's available to me. Yeah. And if I'll just come up higher, man, I can bring others up higher as well. And listen, Bart, that was quite a transformation in my life. That's when things began to shift for me personally, even how I enjoyed life. And it began to shift in my business because it was a different me. It was a different me adding value to people. And so that's a little bit about me. Yes, I get to do this as a coach and consultant, go inside of organizations just like you. There's a GM dealership that I also coach and have coached for years. And it's a thrill. It's a thrill to get to come in every day and to see them functioning on a higher level, even if that upward trajectory is, spaced out over time. I know where we came from.
Yeah. What's so powerful about that, Gary, if I may just interject, and I really want to honor you for this, man. You've got a servant's mentality. You had it from obviously a young age. To say, I want to be a paramedic wasn't because you saw the wealth on the other side of that. You wanted to serve that. And obviously your father's business had a huge impact on what you decided to do as well. It sounds like, correct?
Sure. Absolutely.
So it was like you're always a giver, but you never, and I get this. So when I say this, I don't mean you, I mean, we never felt good enough about yourself. You mentioned imposter syndrome, that you could really add value to other people. And the reason was because you weren't adding value to yourself.
Right.
You were espousing knowledge, but it wasn't really sinking in with you first. Yeah. And it is not selfish to work on ourselves first. Matter of fact, it's mandatory, right? I spent a lot of time in my day working on me so I can be better to those that I get to serve. But I want to thank you for that. And I also want to thank you for the humility with that. I have many friends of mine. I'm in a recovery ministry called Celebrate Recovery. And I've got many friends that will get on stage and say, I'm Leroy and I'm in Celebrate Recovery because I have comparison issues. Or I'm Joanne and I'm in this ministry because I have imposter syndrome. And we as human beings, Levi Lusko, the pastor, says it so well. As human beings, about 95% of us are insecure. We might not be insecure about everything. I feel really confident about coaching, but I'm insecure about my accounting skills, right? Mm-hmm. But we all have insecurity about something. And I think in knowing that, being vulnerable with that, like John says, they don't want you to be right. They want you to be real. I think in that really allows us to open doors for others, because, man, everybody out there, whether they own dealerships or they own Chick-fil-A's, whoever's listening, they've got the same thing going on. And what I heard you say was when you started working on you, that dissipated and it changed everything.
Yeah, it really did. You know, Bart, I'm going to talk just for a minute about transformation. And one of the greatest moments in my life outside of coming to know the Lord is when I recognized that by design, I'm not the big picture and I'll never be the big picture. Now, for my personality, I'd love to be the big picture, right? Right? But when I realized that, and I realized that it was by design. So think about a jigsaw puzzle. I'll never be the big picture, but I'm a piece of the puzzle. So I'm an extremely important part of the big picture. The big picture is not complete without me. Now, just like you see me as this jigsaw puzzle piece, and I've got some gaps. I do. I've got some areas where I'm not as prominent. And then there's parts of me that are prominent, and that's some of my giftedness and your giftedness. So areas where I have gaps, Bart, you can come along and complete me. You can come along and complete me.
Oh, that's so good.
Whenever I recognized that by design, I'm not supposed to be all things to all people. By design, I'm not supposed to have the answer for everything. By design, I'm not supposed to be the hero all the time. When I recognized that, all of a sudden, I saw value in myself in a way that I'd never seen it before. And when I saw that, I saw value in others that I had never seen before. And then here's what it allowed me to do. You can just let me take it one step further. Here's what it allowed me to do.
You go.
The process of transparency, where you take sand that is completely opaque, sand, and you turn it into transparent glass. It must go through the refiner's fire. Now, here's what's interesting. When you begin to dig deep, and I can get a little geeky sometimes, Bart, and I can dig deep into things. When you begin to dig deep into what makes that glass transparent at the micro level, what is it that makes it transparent? It's because it has been transformed to the point that light passes through it. The only reason it's transparent is because the photons are passing through it and bouncing off what's on the other side and coming back to you. So here's what I'm trying to say. As long as I was full of myself, I couldn't get past me. You know what? Other people couldn't get past me, and they couldn't see the way. But the moment that I allowed myself to get into the refiner's fire and allowed myself to be transformed, all of a sudden the light could come through me, and now they can see.
Ooh. Oh, man.
It required transparency on my part.
Yeah.
Where now I can say, yeah, I've had imposter syndrome. Yeah, I know what it's like to wake up in the middle of the night and wonder, how am I going to make it tomorrow? Have I really got it? Yeah. All those things. And so I just wanted to share that with you because I hadn't planned to share that, but you just really inspired me with what you were saying, Bart.
It's funny how this works, right? When something you and I talked about this before we started. I don't have any notes. I just want to have a cup of coffee. Both of us are having a cup of coffee and just hanging out like two brothers. But I got to share something with you about that. You know, it's not a secret about my faith. And, you know, some people can turn us off because of that, but I just am not allowed to. And there's a song by Casting Crowns that you probably know. It's called Nobody. And it just really, I'm going to read the lyrics because it's what you just said. Why you have ever chose me has always been a mystery. All my life, I've been told I belong at the end of the line. I'm going to get emotional here, man. with all the other not quites, with all the never get it rights. But it turns out they're the ones you were looking for all this time. Because I'm just a nobody trying to tell everybody all about somebody who saved my soul. Dude, are you getting emotional like I am? Ever since you rescued me, you gave my heart a song to sing. I'm living for the world to see nobody but Jesus. I'm living for the world to see nobody but Jesus.
Yeah.
Moses had stage fright when David brought a rock to a sword fight. You picked 12 outsiders nobody would have chosen, and you changed the world. Well, the moral of the story is everybody's got a purpose. So when I hear that devil start talking to me saying, who do you think you are? I say, I'm just a nobody trying to tell everybody all about somebody who saved my soul.
Yeah.
Ever since you rescued me, you gave my heart a song to sing. I'm living for the world to see nobody but Jesus.
Yeah.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah,
That's you and me, bro. That's you and me, right?
That's beautiful. Yeah.
That's your story.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you, man. I got chills from that. It was just, when something organic happens, I believe the reason is there's somebody out there, probably you and me, that need to hear what was just said. So that was so powerful in that we need to be in the front row, but we don't have to be the front row.
That's right.
Yes. And I love the fact that you literally got your knees dirty growing up in your servitude journey. And again, you were hiding in the back. That's what my first day at church, man. I hid in the back. I got there late and I left early, but I kept showing up. And here we are, right? Yeah. Here we are. So speaking of the people we get to serve, I just believe in, as we started it off when we got together, that here in Gary, you got that Southern deal going on, man. I could practice that all I want, but it ain't. But it's like, man, it just flows so beautifully. And you're a storyteller. But what you and I talked about last night was so powerful. We both in our businesses like to use assessments to start the conversation. Maybe that's kind of how I look at it. You might go deeper with that. But what I know is that, and I always tell people this, if you're kind of an introvert and you don't know your people real well, do an assessment on them and know what the assessment says. And it's a great way to crack the code of how to communicate. In DISC, you and I were talking about this last night. The page 8 says, this is how you do talk to me. This is how you do not talk to me. And that is just, how many times if you're a leader at a company where you just say, man, I can't communicate with this person. Stop. Go get them a DISC. Look up, I think it's page 8. It could be page 9. Yeah. Look up page 8 and have them read it back to you. This is how you communicate with me. This is how you don't communicate with me.
Yeah.
And I've told this story on the podcast before of my son who was getting ready to quit a business, his first job. He was a broadcaster. He was getting ready to quit. And he went and had a beer with his boss. And he told his boss exactly that. This is how you communicate with me. This is how you don't communicate with me. And it changed the relationship forever. So tell us about how DISC, and then I want to talk emotional intelligence too, but talk about how DISC in your business has had such an impact. And you were giving me some acronyms last night that were like very powerful. And I'd love to have you share it with our guests.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, Stephen Covey said, seek first to understand, then seek to be understood. With the automobiles nowadays, if I were going to get in a Corvette, there's probably a couple of things that I need to get oriented to. I would love to get into a Corvette. I'm just saying. There's a few things that I'm going to need to get. The steering wheel is a little different, but I'm going to have to get, tell me where everything's, I'm going to have to get oriented. Which button do I push? Right? It's the same with people. Which button do I push to get the results that we want? And so what I love about DISC is basically, if you boil it down, and I just love to boil things down, if you boil it down, it's showing you what matters to the other person, because our personality, it's a reflection of two things, our perspective and our preference. So I love to share with people, it's not personal, it's preference, right? on how people communicate. It's preference on how they want to be communicated to. It's preference on how they make purchasing decisions. It is. And so there's things that matter to them. So I created an acronym. So if you think of DISC as in D, I, S, and C, then the acronym is READ. And I love that because you're getting a read on people. So these are the 4 basic things that matter. And whenever you understand what matters to someone, then you can deliver your conversation. You can engage with them in the way that matters. So R is results. To the dominant, results is what really matters to them. They want to win, and talk to them about results. That's what they're focused on. What's the bottom line? For an I personality like myself, it's an enjoyable experience. Enjoyable experience. That's what matters. So I want to have an enjoyable experience with you, Bart. If you're going to sell me a car or whatever, I want that to be an enjoyable exchange between us, right? And so conversation is going to engage my positive energy. To the S personalities, this is 69% of the population. These are the nicest people in the world, very accommodating. Affirmation matters to them. That's why you'll hear them say that when you get a minute, I don't want you to stop what you're doing. When you get a minute, I'd like to talk to you about this vehicle out here that I got my eye on. And because they don't want to be a bother. They're the nicest people in the world. But affirmation really matters to them. To the C personalities, details really matter to them. So these might be the ones that would show up with a spreadsheet. They've already made out their 20 questions that they got for you, and they've done the research on it. So they're really going to see if you match up with the research. Details matter to them. The beautiful thing about human behavior is that we always communicate what really matters to us. You don't have to be around somebody that results matters long to know that they want results. They want the bottom line. You don't have to be around somebody detail-oriented very long to know, boy, they're really asking me about these things. They're asking me about the warranties and the efficiency and right? Because the details matter to them. The other thing that I like to share is there's something that they'll be sensitive to. And so you can then guide your conversation. And so for a dominant, they're sensitive to being taken advantage of. For those that are results-oriented, taken advantage of, they're going to be sensitive to that idea. For those that are an enjoyable experience, like myself, is what they want, rejection is something they're going to be sensitive to. That idea they're going to be sensitive to because they want to have that enjoyable experience with a person. For those that affirmation matters, where everything is steady as she goes, instability they're going to be sensitive to. So any kind of, if you have more an aggressive approach, they're going to feel like the boat's rocking. Okay. And those that are detail oriented, they want to be correct. So the idea of criticism, they're sensitive to that. Okay. Now, I'll give you a quick example. Car dealership that I coach, the owner, and she knows that I share this. She's okay with it. She's a D personality. So when she called me into her office one day to talk to me about working with her team, I knew she was a dominant personality. I knew right out of the gate. She did most of the talking. Everything that she talked about was goal oriented. And so I knew she was a D. And so she said, we're going to do this deal. And she looked at me sideways. She said, you're good. She said, I don't know what it is because I'm a hard sell. She said, you're good. And I just smile away like the Madagascar penguins, And I did her profile and her debrief. She said, how did you know I was a D? So I told her what I just told you. She did most of the talking. I knew results mattered. I said, I also know what your main fear is. She said, what's that? I said, being taken advantage of. Her mouth dropped open. I said, so I strategically used all language opposite of your fear. And she stared at me. And I said, now, before you think I just took advantage of you, I said, let me explain. I said, it's authentic because I care about doing a good job for you. I said, it was strategic because I just understood what mattered to you. She said, can you teach us to do that? And I said, yes, ma'am, I can. And so that's the power of it, Bart, is just understanding what matters to other people and meet them there. That's what we want. We want people to meet us where we are, don't we?
Yeah, boy, that's so good. And as I'm hearing this, you and I know that I'm going in the studio, John Maxwell studio, at the end of this month. We're filming this right now in January, and I'm going in there for 2 days, 2 full days to do 3-minute segments on sales, leadership, personal development. And one of the things that has to be part of both leadership, sales, and personal development is this topic that we're having. Because how can a salesperson know the 12 steps of a sale, but not how to read the client and know strategically how to handle that personality? Right. And we've said this, and I'm sure you do. I know you do this. You just said it. We do it in all our meetings, whether it's a sales meeting, whether it's a boot camp that we do, our 12-week boot camps, whether it's one-on-one, we always start with an assessment. Why? Yes, we want self-awareness. Of course we do. We want to know ourselves to grow ourselves. But I'm believing the most important piece, I don't want to do a disc on somebody necessarily to know if I should hire them or not, really. Because seriously, Gary, our business has changed a lot. The automotive business, I've been in it 40 years. Everybody was a D and an I when they first started. Yeah. But there's so many of them now that are S and Cs. Yeah. And why? Because 83% of the people on the planet are S and Cs. Right. So we've got to make sure we've got S and Cs in our dealerships to communicate. Didn't used to be that way. They used to be afraid of them. So yeah, I get it. It's important for hiring. But more importantly, why not do it with all the people that work with you? You've got Leroy, who you're having trouble motivating. Do you know how Leroy thinks? And in you studying all your people's discs, now you become an expert at disc. You become a Dr. Gary White that you can share this and with your people. You know it as well as Bart does, so that you can get your people up to speed, that everybody you hire, you can read them, whether it's upstairs, outside, in the back, you know them so well. Yeah. So I'm believing that a dealership that has an ultimate advantage knows this material, the psychology of this. Now, I have to tell you, there's a gentleman in this industry that I really respect, who's been doing the training bit for a long time. And I remember one day he was going to bring me on one of his stages, and he said, "What are you going to talk about?" And I said, "Disc." And he said to me, which is the problem in the industry, I will say, "That's old school. That stuff's old school." Yes, it is. Yeah. And it doesn't matter. Accounting is old school, but if you don't know how to count the numbers, if you're a businessman, you're probably going broke, right? Yeah. So there's certain things we need to know. And I really believe in my time in this industry, I believe it with all my soul, and you just said it, and I'd love to have you dance with this. I don't think there's anything more important. I don't think great leaders know their people. Yeah. And I can't, and you get this, how many times have you and I talked to a leader, so-called, and they're probably a level 1, maybe a level 2 leader. They really like them, but they don't know them. And they don't know what makes them tick. Right. And to me, that's a shame, because I can't know you if I don't know you. If I don't know what your pain point is, if I don't know what you're sensitive to, how am I going to grow you? Yeah. And isn't that our responsibility as a leader?
Yeah, it really is. Leaders should transfer to their people. They should transfer the vision, right? And then help their people win. Think about in sales, what you do for the customer. You transfer the vision, your relevant idea of the solution that they need, and you set them up to win. Yes. That's what you do. And that's why I love that you're doing this, Bart, and everyone should get your product. And that's why I love what you're doing. Because sales and leadership, it is so intertwined. Yeah. And if I will get better on my ability to effectively communicate, John Maxwell said that everything rises and falls on leadership. So the dealership, and you're helping promote leadership, and the dealership will rise and fall on leadership. Yes. It just will. Yeah. He then goes on to say, and your leadership will rise and fall on your ability to effectively communicate.
Oh,
So you've got to understand who you're talking to and how to talk to them. Now, that also means add value to the people that work around you. And I only want to bring up this point because I recognize it's something that happens. I believe there's well-meaning people in every industry, and they don't recognize that they're doing this that I'm getting ready to share with you. I can be one way to a customer and be somebody different to my colleague because I have an expectation of my colleague to serve me. In other words, Bart, let's say you're working in fixed ops and I'm working over in sales, and I really want you to serve me. I want you to make things easier on me. Or maybe I'm in the office and you're in sales, and I really want you to serve me, right? And not understanding that, hey, I have an opportunity to effectively impact you in a positive way. And as a matter of fact, Bart, you have an opportunity to pull me up higher. Bart's communicating up here, and I'm communicating here. And rather, Bart, than you be, I'm not serving you, you're calling me higher, and you're effective. You're having a positive effect on me. We forget sometimes that our first customer is ourselves, take care of ourselves, but then it's those that we work with and around.
Yes.
Really, we got to take care of that.
And again, it's a shame because I think there's so many level 3 leaders within automotive, and good for them, but it's all about ROI. Yeah. And what they forget is you're not going to have an ROI if you don't have a POI. I just made that up. I hope in other words, I think it's an ROP, the return on our people. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Because that's my number one. Look, I've got a guy named Russ, Gary. Russ was frankly a drug addict, but he was my GSM, and he believed in me. I don't know if Russ is still alive. Maybe he's out there watching. I hope he's sober, but I loved Russ because of what he believed in me. And I was just a dumb kid from Toledo. I didn't know nothing, but he believed in me, and he knew me, and he groomed me, and he saw me differently than I saw myself. And he could connect with me and communicate with me. He didn't know any of this stuff, but he knew how to read me, and he knew how to motivate me at times. He knew how to pull me down. He knew how to kind of kick me in the butt at times, all that. And I'll never forget him. Yeah. I want that for every leader in this room because it's a lot bigger. If you want to leave a legacy of making a significance in the people whose lives that you see every single day. Oh, yeah. And if you don't know them, man, you better look in the mirror because you're not growing them. And if you're having big turnover, you need to look in the mirror because you're not knowing how to communicate and connect with them. People don't leave companies. They leave people. Yeah. Now, Gary, I'd love to talk a little bit about, we're a little tapped. We got about 5 minutes. Okay. But I'd love to, because I got another one right behind you, but I'd love to talk about something you and I talked about yesterday too with emotional intelligence. Yeah. And that's another assessment that I am falling in love with. Yeah. I love emotional intelligence. And here's why I love it for this business, Gary. Everybody gets in this business. Why? Because they dreamed of being a car salesman when they were 5? No. They got in this business because maybe at 20, they found a way to make more money than they did, even though they went to 4 years of college. Yeah. And nobody got in the business unless their family was in the business, knowing they were going to do it at 5. Nobody. So my point is, though, everybody wants to make money in this business. Sure. And what's cool about emotional intelligence is that the people in this universe that make the most money are high on emotional intelligence. So you and I both have surveys, assessments that we give to our people that allows them to see and allows us to see their emotional intelligence. And as a leader, you and I can adjust it and grow their emotional intelligence so it grows their income. Give us a little taste, a tease on your take on emotional intelligence. Expert in this.
Wonderful. Here's what I love about emotional intelligence. I use this all the time with everyone that I work with. What I love about it is you get a reading of your current usage of every subscale of emotional intelligence. You get a reading on your current usage. Here's what I love about that. Everything's available to you. There is nothing that you can't intentionally get better in when it comes to your emotional intelligence. Now, very quickly, 7 levels of awareness. Let me just talk very briefly about that.
Please.
And then you're going to see what I'm talking about. First level is the animal level, where you just react. So think about that. Animal level, you just react, and that's on the way to work in the morning. You just react. Okay.
Right.
Animal level, you get that. The second level is the mass level, where you just follow the crowd. My wife and I were in St. Petersburg. We were downtown. We didn't know the area, but it's lunchtime and we're hungry. And we see people walking that direction. We say, well, let's just follow them, because maybe they're hungry too, right? That's a level of awareness, mass level. The third level is the aspiration level. That's where, hey, there's something more. There's something more than just what meets the eye. The next level is individual, where you say, not only is there something more, but it's available to me. Oh, this is where it starts getting good. The next level is the discipline level, where you say, now I'm going to do something about it. Now I'm going to take action. There's more, it's available to me, and I'm going to take action on it. The next level, the sixth one, is experience. So you got a result, right? And as Chris Robinson told me one time, he said, just go get a result. 5 words that changed my business. Just go get a result. Okay. The seventh level, the highest level of awareness, is mastery. Here's why it's called mastery. Because you're using everything that's available to you. That's all mastery is. I love golf. But the reason that Tiger Woods is amazing is because he uses everything that's available to him. He has learned everything that's available to him. I have not when it comes to golf. Okay, you get it. Right? Same thing in emotional intelligence. Everything's available to you. When you learn what is available and how you can leverage it, you can become a master at emotional intelligence by using everything that's available to you to connect with people. And you will be more successful, and those around you will.
Oh, that's just sexy stuff. It just is, man. We could talk this for 4 hours. So if you don't know about emotional intelligence, Google it. But there's 4 pieces that are a big part of emotional intelligence. Number 1, self-awareness. Gary talked about self-awareness when he was 20 years old. Some of us, frankly, some of your people have no self-awareness, but we can help them. Right? Another thing, self-management. I was a drug addict. I was 25 years old, weighed 150 pounds, and I'm not proud of these moments, but I had a daughter born about 2 years later. As soon as my daughter was born, it started to change me. And I realized I was aware that I was a drug addict, but I didn't have to be that anymore. So I went to rehab. That was self-management. I started to manage those things that I said I wanted to do. I didn't just lie to myself. I did it. The next one is social awareness. And that means, how well are you at reading the room? Do you know how are you feeling the need in the room? Can you tell if somebody's connected? Can you tell if you're not? And the last one is relationship management. How well are you at building deep relationships? Now, again, Gary and I can go deep with this, but I wanted to give you the 4 concepts of it. And and I'm going to have you now, Gary, tell us how they can get a hold of you if they have any questions, or if they would like to talk to you directly. Tell us how they can do that, my friend.
Wonderful. My email, Gary@GaryWhiteCoaching.com. And obviously my website, GaryWhiteCoaching.com. So Gary@GaryWhiteCoaching.com.
Perfect. It's a great website too. I just looked at it. Fantastic. And here's what I'm going to do, because you guys listened to this today. We have and you're going to reach out to me at bartnollenberger.com. I'm going to give the first 10 people that reach back at me either a DISC behavior assessment with coaching. And that's about a $200 value, frankly. So a DISC behavior assessment let's make it a DISC emotional intelligence assessment or emotional intelligence assessment. One of those 3, either a DISC, emotional intelligence, or a combination. And with that will be coaching that I'll spend 45 minutes with you and walk you through it. The first 10 people that email me at bartnollenberger.com to open up this topic, and then that's our gift to you. Reach out to Gary incredible human, incredible soul, great man of God. And you know what, Gary, you and I are going to collaborate. We talked about that yesterday.
Yeah.
I would be honored to be on the same stage with you. I'd be honored to do different projects together. And I want to put that on the table right now. What you and I know in 25 is collaboration is essential. And there's nobody I'd rather partner up with than you. And I thank you for your time today.
Bart, I love you. And man, I'm just so proud to see the great things that you're doing. Man, you are second to none. Everybody get Bart's course. Get Bart's course that he's putting together for you.
Yeah, reach out and we'll walk you through that and see where your needs are. And we're looking forward to hang out. Or if you want to do a boot camp, or if there's some other stuff you want to do with Gary, reach out to him. Hey, thanks, everybody. We're so grateful for you. Gary, I love you too, man. Thank you for being who you are. You're a great man. We'll talk to you soon, everybody.